Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing more of the Patience is a Virtue seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which at the start of our turn, every card in our hand gets transformed into a random card that costs 1 provision more. That means that it is very hard to build a deck around this event. However, today we have a deck for a faction we've never tried before in this event, so let's go give it a look. Alright, so in this event, there are some factions and leader abilities in particular that are way stronger than others, and we've already played decks for just about all of those. However, today we're going to try something new. We're going to try playing a Syndicate Pirates Cove deck. Because we're getting random cards every turn, you will sometimes find yourself getting Syndicate cards, and with other factions, when you don't really have any way to capitalize on the coins, those Syndicate cards are oftentimes just dead cards that have no value to you at all, and that makes things a little bit difficult. But by playing Syndicate and using Pirates Cove, that means we can always get a Sea Jackal on the board, which means we always have a way to at least turn some of those coins into some value. So that is the key difference maker here, is that although Pirates Cove, not the highest points you could get with any given leader ability, at least not in this event. You know, obviously if you have a whole bunch of coins, yes, but it just gives us more options is the big difference maker here, where coins are actually valuable to us, which is saying something, because that means there are a lot more cards that we can consider using. Other than that, we have Devotion. We do not have any duplicate cards in our deck either, so that means we get the value out of Devotion cards, and we get the value out of things like Shoop Stay Off and Redea, so that's useful. And then we have a few cards that if we keep them in our deck rather than have them get drawn into our hand, like King of Beggars and like the Flying Redanian, we can get some additional value from them. So that is another little bonus that we have as well. Other than that, we just have a variety of cards with a variety of provision costs here. So that means that hopefully when we are drawing into our starting hand, we can get a nice mixture of provision costs on all of our cards, which is usually what we're looking for in this event, because that means that you're not going to have every single card be a finisher at the same time. You'd like to have some things that are set up, which tends to be a little bit more in the low provision range, and then toward the end of the round is when you're getting all of your finishers. Then they start to really pay off, and you don't have every single card turning into a scenario on the same turn, and then you can only play one of them, and you probably don't even want to play that scenario because you probably don't have any setup for it, and all the other ones that you don't play turn into 4 provision cost cards again, and then you start from scratch, and those cards are trash. So, that's why the biggest thing in this event is oftentimes actually provision cost management, and hopefully, outside of the cards we try to keep in our deck, like King of Beggars, like Flying Redanian, we have a decent spread of provision costs on our cards. And again, the big difference maker is just that we have a way to use coins whenever necessary with our leader ability, which is not something that you can say of many other decks. So with that being said, let's go see it in action. Alright, so coming up against Skellige here, and they'll go first. Okay, so looking at our starting hand here, I think we want to put King of Beggars back into our deck because that's where we're getting the most value out of him. And outside of that, looking at managing the provision costs of the cards that we do have, we have a few 9s, which it's okay. That means those are cards we're going to want to play fairly early in this round. And then we have an 8 or 2. There are a lot of cards in and around the same number, which might mean we want to put one of them back into our deck. Okay, so we'll start with Operator, and they have bronze units. They're going to give, you're going to give us a sorceress that we'll actually be able to use before you can use yours. So, thanks. Okay, and some interesting options here. Saber-tooth Tiger, gonna be hard to make that work when they already have as many units on the board as they do. So that's probably a no-go, even though we have 2 of them, kind of unfortunately. And Dragon Larva is actually a really good round starter. So that's not a bad option, even if it is just a 6 provision cost card. Don't let that fool you into thinking it's not good. Geralt is, of course, a big one as well, but there's nothing to go after that has 9 power or more. So I think it is going to be the Dragon Larva, and probably we'll try to use this sorceress to prevent them from doing anything with that sorceress, although, with their Crystal Skull, that's going to be a little bit tough. So, I mean, giving it bleed is not really enough to shut it down. And don't really want to boost Thrive units, so I guess we're boosting the sorceress herself, even though I don't love that. Okay, it's Ragnarok. Ooh, questionable putting it in the row with the Thrive units, because that just makes it easier for us to trigger that Thrive. I mean, of course, early on when they're at 2 power, that's not saying much. then they're going to go for the movement. Okay, they're going to try to put everything in this row, I see. Alright, and... Kasha, it is... Speaking of Thrive, Kasha is, of course, one of, if not the best Thrive units. Just that it's kind of early to play it, because you're really looking to trigger it when it's on Adrenaline 4. Before then, it's not great. Imperial Golem, of course, no way of knowing what they might have in their deck that could damage it. Don't know how many special cards we're going to get, so Johnny is a bit of a risk as well. Bran is mostly a card that you should keep in your deck, and you build an entire deck around, and that is not the case here. So, I'm not sure if we have any tactics. Nah, I doubt it since we're Devotion. So I think we might be looking at Emir here. And you're going back into the deck. You can stay right there. And this might give us some setup in the future, because they're going to have spying now on any unit that they play unless they shut down Emir, which is not a super high priority, so they might not do that. And at 13 provisions, Artaud is certainly, I mean, it's not that unusual to see pop up, because there aren't that many 13 provision cost units. So that could actually turn into something that gives us a lot of incremental value. Far off in the future, though. Okay, Saskia. Harmony, and depends what other unit they spawn in, it's the damage. And it hits the Sorceress. Okay. Ooh. Shudda is the biggest unit, or would be the biggest unit, so she would damage herself. That's not ideal. Speaking of Harmony, we could also go Harmony, but I think that's not a great bet to make. No cultists in our deck, so you're not a great idea. We don't think we have any Echo units either. We don't have Desiree, I don't believe. Put there, so no. That means we're probably looking at Erland. Won't have the immunity, but still a lot of units in our deck. So that it has some potential to be reasonably big here. So I think we go for that. Does still trigger the Thrive, so that's also nice. And as we were saying, Emir is going to give spying to their units. So getting spying on Saskia means potentially Artaud giving an extra Saskia, which, I mean, that's solid value already, if we do end up having that happen at some point. Villain Trettenmirth. Right now would destroy Emir. If we were to use Erland, would destroy Erland. So either we need to shut this down. Ooh, and we almost can. We almost can. We could play War Elephant, and that would become the sacrificial elephant in that case. Eskel would get boosted up to 7. It'd be a 50-50 chance. Does it become Emir who gets destroyed, or does it become Eskel? I mean, that is probably otherwise the best card here. We do have Devotion, so King Belahoon actually does have some long-term value. Philippe is just... Oh, actually... Wait, do we have a vampire? We do not, do we? Because you already have a status, so it actually would go to Locke, but there's no Zeal, so we won't be quick enough to make that happen. I think, for that reason, we'll take our chances on Eskel here. Definitely not going to use this yet. Definitely not going to do that yet. Just a matter of, is Eskel going to be the one that gets destroyed, or is it going to be Emir? What I think they should do is they should totally use their leader ability right now. That'd obviously be the best play for them right now. Okay, One-Eyed Betsy. Probably should have gone for Erland. Yes, it's going to guarantee that Eskel gets destroyed. But now we can just use Erland. And, okay. If we do lose this round, which after that Villain Trettenmirth and all the damage from the Cataclysm, it has put us at a bit of a deficit. They have, of course, played one more card than us. But if we are to lose a round, then we get Ciri back into our hands. So that is nifty. we will get a pretty sizable boost from Erland here, though, as almost every single card in our deck is a unit that has been boosted. So don't discount that. Vernoseal is also a really nice point slam. I think we're just going for the round win here. Either Vernoseal or technically Chapter Wizards does also give us carryover. So we should probably do this. At least the potential for carryover. Not loving our options. Not loving our options. And yeah, we'll do that. Because it is just enough for us to retake the lead here. So that means they need to keep on playing, otherwise we're winning uneven. Okay, it's Redea. Now, presumably that means they don't have any repeated cards in their deck, so yet they're actually getting the extra stratagem there. Which is a really solid point slam there, and Knickers comes out as well. So we know they don't have Devotion. Let's see. Our highest provision card, I'm pretty sure, is Philippa. Which means we may want to play her on this turn, otherwise she might end up bricking on our next turn. If we were to use her, it's not an obvious card that we would want to go after. Out of curiosity, for Shani, do we have humans in our graveyard? If only. If only. That would be great, but no, not quite. Tisea, I mean, technically we do have a mage that could get set up by that, but it's not exactly a huge factor. Chances of them having an artifact in their starting deck, who knows? I think we just go for the sure thing with Philippa. And go after you. Yeah, we got some of those things hitting their armor, which is unfortunate. Got a little bit of reduced value out of the Philippa damage for that reason, but since we are on red coin, we do, of course, have the ability to respond to them. They are still in the lead, but if they pass here, we can probably catch them between Chapter Wizards, Heir to the Student, and whatever else we play here. Now, Gezros is huge. Make no mistake, Gezros is huge. And maybe reason enough for us to stop playing in this round. Dandelion Poet is technically a tutor, and basically 4 free points. Not sure if him into Damien makes that much sense. Does potentially open up additional leader ability charges to us, but that's not a humongous factor. Cleaver, honestly, is probably even better. Brothans, as I think we stated previously, we do not have a disloyal unit in our deck, so it's not a huge factor. I think it's worth giving this a shot. We'll go Cleaver, because that is a very nice card for us, and we should avoid the melee row at all costs. And it's not quite enough coins, I'm afraid. So it's not quite what we're looking for there. They will continue to get value from Gezros. This is the dangerous thing, is it's going to be much harder to catch them now that they have Gezros, even if we're willing to go 1 card down. This is a big, big factor. They will continue to play as Fukusia. Do they have a Skellige in their graveyard? Oh, they have Ryogon in their graveyard. They must have started with it there, of course. They are a Skellige deck. Okay, so that's big. That's also big. This is also big. As would be Professor, which, it just doesn't quite have enough damage to get rid of Gezros, but it would be great if it did. I mean, we could go after any of the 4s and get the coinage there, and then suddenly we can use Cleaver, so that it becomes a factor. Heir to the Student is now at 3 points on the boost. I mean, is any of that enough? It's what, 10 points? Then with the 4 additional coins, that means we have 7. We can use this once. We get 5 points here, so that gets us up to 15, which puts us, what, in the low 50s, but Gezros is going to continue to get boosted every turn, or do boost and do damage every turn, even if they pass, which I think is reason enough for us to need to pass here. Unfortunately, that is just too big of a factor. Okay, so they played 1 more card than us in round 1, so presumably they are going to try pass, although it's not guaranteed. We might want to put one of our high provision cost cards back into our deck, otherwise they have the potential to brick. We'd like to keep Flying Redanian in our deck, because that is, of course, a source of thinning and additional value if we do get up to 9 coins, so that means maybe we dump one of you, and having Gezros in our deck might be useful. Professor can also be kind of nifty, because that does have some synergies with what we're trying to do, but we'll stick with this, and we are hoping they dry pass, but if they don't, we do have some carryover from Chapter Wizards, so that would discourage them, one would think, from trying to push any further. And it does, but we'll see. Is there any way we can get additional carryover here? Not exactly, but kinda sorta. Ludovicus Renegade is a 13 provision cost card, which means if we don't play him, he's gonna probably get bricked into a scenario, and by the start of round 3, be a 4 provision cost card. That's not great. What we could do is play him, and then put one of their cards into our hand, a card that is right around the amount of provisions that we would like to see going into round 3, so it's going to get bumped up once or twice before then, though, so, you know, a 9 is probably going to turn to 11 by then, so bear that in mind. A 7 turning into a 9 might be around what we're looking at, so I'm thinking something like that. Obviously, we're not going to get this exact card, because it's going to get transformed, so I think that is what we do, though. So we'll go maybe Operator, and then put, I guess, our lowest card-coded weapons over there. So I think it just, in terms of managing provision costs of cards, I think that was the best course of action there. And that's, of course, points-wise, all we need in round 2. Okay, so now we have a bunch of relatively high provision cost cards. Bloody Baron at 10, an 8, an 8, another 8, a 9, another 9. That's actually kind of scary, because that means they're all going to reach 12, 13, 14, and then back down to 4 around the same time, which means they're going to brick at around the same time. We're going to get a bit of a bottleneck, is basically what I'm getting at. So I think we do want to dump something that's around that 8 or 9 range. Probably like to get rid of this. Well, actually, Street Urchins might stick around with this, because by the time we're getting around to playing this, assuming it's one of the last cards we play in this round, might be solid by then, so we might stick with this. It's a little more well-rounded, but we do want to be mindful of playing one of the big cards first, like, say, oh, I don't know, for example, the 12-point body that is Old Spear Tip, which also, I believe, was our highest provision cost card, so that does work really well for that reason as well. Although, I mean, Dire Bear playing it on the first turn, they're just going to play anything in the opposite row, so yeah, it can be a factor, but not this early. Okay, Imlerith. How big of a boost is the question. 6-point boost. Smaller than what we played, but still a decent unit. No status, unfortunately. So, Vincent Van Wolderham does not work. Might be able to get the card draw from Siri Dash. That is tempting. Poison, I mean, who knows if we'll get enough to actually do anything to you, significantly. We could put the Doomed on you and then follow up on our next turn and destroy you. Probably. Or, we could do that, even if it does get purified. That means their leader ability, Patricide, does start with Doomed. So we could get rid of an 11-point unit there, even if they do purify this. So that's intriguing. I feel like it's... I mean, in either case, if they lock, they're going to shut it down, right? But it's possible to get 5 points of damage. It's fairly difficult to get 6. Lock, again, in both cases works. But, I mean, we should play 10 either way. They're both 10s. We'll go for this. Technically, might be worth slightly more. If we're talking about removing the 11-power unit, then that might be a little bit better. And my guess is they might not realize just how much value Gaunter might have here. Oh, the other benefit is that Siri would take several turns to trigger, so we're just inviting the removal, inviting the control for several turns, whereas Gaunter just needs 1 turn. And if they don't immediately shut him down, then we're at least getting this 9-point value. If not, we can wait and try to go for an 11. Okay. More interesting options here. We can get value from Siggy. In fact, humongous value. And in fact, I have built the entire deck to make sure that we get the maximum profit out of it. 10. So we would cap out our profit, which does immediately make our Pirates Cove Sea Jackals very, very dangerous. And that's probably more valuable than Damien, because Damien, I mean, gets us the 8-point bodies again, or 2 4-power bodies. But, I mean, this is Intimidate as well, so it's technically an engine, and you're also useful, but we'd like for you to have evolved. Selkirk could potentially duel something, which could be useful as well. I think we just go Siggy. I think we just go Siggy. Max coinage. Destroy Imlerith, because although it would have been bigger if we had saved up and waited for them to do Patricide, also the maximum coinage means we get Flying Redanian out, so that's another reason why Siggy was a little bit better, probably. Yeah, so we could have waited for them to play Patricide and gotten 2 more coins out of Gaunter, but I figured the guaranteed removal was worth more than the potential removal at the risk of Gaunter getting destroyed or locked in some way, shape, or form. So, this is going to shut down Old Spirit Tip unless we can prevent Villain Trenton Mirth from doing its thing here. Or we could play Vivian next to Old Spirit Tip and turn this into a 12, in which case it's destroying one of our 12 power cards, but not both of them. Hjalmar. Hold on. We can damage by 8, which is enough or more if we needed to. Well, all we need is 6. We have enough damage to destroy you, is what I'm getting at. That is the right play. It doesn't have to be a Skellige card, does it? It does not. So, technically, 6 is all we need. But we're not going to get Build the Forts out anyway, and there's a chance we could actually get Eskel out using a Renew later on. So, this would have been... actually, by round 3, when we have only 7 cards in our deck, that's not that valuable. So, yeah, that's definitely the right play there. Okay, it's Unseen Elder. I don't remember if we've established if they have Devotion or not. They do not. So not quite as valuable in that case, and we could potentially hide Old Spirit Tip behind Fion, our defender, which is kind of nifty. Getting extra coins from Cleaver. We do have a spender with our Pirate's Cove Sea Jackal, so there is something to be said for that. It's not quite as necessary to have a spender like Cleaver for that reason, although it does give us a little bit more coinage, so that is something. What do we value more? I think given how we are looking at a lead here, I mean, this Chapter Wizards, for what it's worth, is going to brick if we don't play it on this turn. And Haunt has already bricked, so yeah, this is actually dangerous. This is very dangerous. I think we need to play Chapter Wizards, because if we don't, this becomes a bad card. This also becomes a bad card. That is setting ourselves up for a very bad end of the round, which I do not like. So let's go Spellweaver. And so the bigger thing is that, I mean, I would have liked to have played Fion, of course. I really would have liked to have played Fion, but if we do that, then we're looking at just too many bricks in our hand. So we risk losing what will be a 10-point unit by the time the bleed takes effect there. Which would be a factor. They, of course, still have their leader ability, which is worth a lot. We still have our leader ability, which is worth even more, because we have the coins to back it up. Gaunter. On you, I assume. Yep. That looks familiar. Except we could Heatwave Gaunter, which is worth it. It's probably still worth more than Unseen Elder, I think, especially because there's no Devotion there. And Regis just doesn't have the setup right now, even though this is the highest provision cost card, but at 13 on our next turn, it's possibly still playable. Hopefully still playable. So I think we do this. And we should immediately spawn you in as well. And poke somebody. You're 1 power lower, so we probably have a better chance of getting rid of Ivo, although he's probably not quite as dangerous as Unseen Elder is. And we can do this Pirate's Cove whenever. So we can probably just wait on that. Okay, it's a Chapter Wizards for them. They're probably in a similar situation here where they're facing down potential scenario bricking in their hand. And they'll get Banard Student. And we're looking at Brutes. And although it is a Syndicate card, we've not done much in the way to set it up here, unfortunately. So it's basically a 6-power body that is likely to turn to a 4-power scenario on our next turn if we don't play it right now. Alba Pikeman has some value. The fact that they have a shield on this Banard Student does limit that value to a certain extent. But it, combined with the damage from the Spellweaver, might just barely give us what it takes to get rid of this Ivo, although at that point, I mean, was Ivo really going to do anything? Probably not. So, we might actually need to go with the Brute. Because otherwise, this is going to reduce value, whereas this, if we don't play it right now, is probably going to gain value. So yeah, I think it is this. I think it is that, and then we'll at least, once again, poke Ivo. Okay, Octavia Hale, I doubt they have cards in their deck to benefit from that. Alright, then our last card will be Vermeed, and we have any soldiers at all. I don't think we do. We do not. So you are a 4-point body. Unfortunately, that did not really turn into a very useful 6 provision cost card for us, but that is a card that, as I said before, we had bricked at one point in time. We'd allowed it to turn into a scenario and loop back around to 4 provision, waited until it at least got up to 6 and even then. It's not really a safe bet. So, we play you, but the big thing is that we still have leader ability charges, so we can play one of these Sea Jackals in each row. And with our coinage, let's just kind of split up the boosts a bit here. Deliberately, I think, going to make this one a little bit bigger. Shouldn't have them all lined up on... try not to have them all lined up on 10 power in case they have a way to remove all the highest units on the board. But that way, they have, say, like an Igni. They're not going to just destroy, 10 and 10 simultaneously. It's Knighthood. That is definitely not enough, but they still have their leader ability as well. And they do have the damaging order abilities on at least one of those Banard students. So with all that factored in, is that enough for them? It is not. We will still take the win. Alright, so going up against Northern Realms here. And we'll go first. Okay, and we're probably going to want to put Super Raiders back into our deck, because that is a card that we might be able to summon out later on. And outside of that, King of Beggars we definitely want to put back into our deck. That's a card we very much like to get summoned out from our deck. And then possibly one of these two. Then again, they are, of course, some of our higher provision cost cards, and therefore could be some of the strongest cards for us to start off the round with. Although having them all on the same number, all 9 provisions, is maybe not the best of fits. So maybe we put one of you back. Okay, so let's see what we have here. Since we're going first, well, Vincent does not have anything to go after, although he might even be the highest provision cost card that we have here. Mata will draw us into our highest provision cost card, which I'm pretty sure is King of Beggars, and we obviously don't want to do that, because then not only is he not in our deck where he should be, he's going to get transformed before we can play him, and so that's also very bad. Oh, how I wish they had someone we could go after with Ewald. That would be very nice. It's looking like it might be a Catechin situation here. This is probably the best card that we have in hand at present. Okay, it's Alzur's Thunder, which is enough to get rid of at least the engine. But we do still at least have a 3-power Ekimara on the board, so that's something. And once again, we have some big finishers here with Tin Boy, but just not anything to attack here. So it does make things a little bit awkward. We do not have an old Spirit Tip in our deck, so this doesn't really work for us. Force Protector, we don't have any nature cards in our graveyard right now. Could go Pitfall Trap, which actually would hit really hard, whatever they're about to play next. Otherwise, I mean, there isn't much for us to go with here. So I guess it is this, given how we, by default, pretty much have to go with a proactive play of some variety. Okay, it's Yennefer, which will deal damage to this guy. But then again, it's high provision cost card, and therefore we will destroy everything that they play. And now we don't have enough coins for Savolla, but oh, how I wish we did. Oh, how I wish we did. We could go Witchfinder, which honestly is not a bad play at all for us here. Geralt Professional, unfortunately, doesn't have anything to go after. Technically, Van Morlehem Cupbearer, although doesn't have anything to poison or purify, is an Assimilate card, which is worth a lot of points in this event, because Assimilate is going to get triggered by basically everything that we do. So it's probably one of these, depending on how much we want to lean into the Syndicate coin aspect, or just, no matter what happens, we'll at least get some points out of it from Assimilate. We also do not have any duplicates in our starting deck. Hold on, I did not even see this. We should go for this. Because it means Resilience, which they have plenty of time to find some kind of answer to, but if we can hide this behind a Defender, then that would be awesome. So actually, tons of great options on that turn. Okay, it's Old Spirit Tip, which is a good point slam. So let's see what we have here. Urko. Out of curiosity, do we have a crime we could use to... Well, Damnation, yes, but not sure how effective that's really going to be. We don't want to use it on Shoop Knight. That much is for certain. We could turn around and hit them with a Yennefer Illusionist if we really want to. This is one of our higher provision cost cards, and we do have several high provision cost cards, so we really should play one of them now. Chapter Wizards actually is the highest, so we might want to go that route. Even though I think it's probably weaker than Yennefer Illusionist. It could potentially be another source of resilience, though. Some extra carryover. So we'll go for it. We'll give it a shot. And sure, we'll go for a Spellweaver. See if we can get additional Spellweavers happen here. Okay, Art Death will deal some damage, but fortunately the Cintrian Spellweaver's shield will tank at least a bit of that, but Shoop Knight could be in a bit of trouble here. Ooh. We have more interesting options, though. We can destroy Old Spear Tip with Scorch. We can switch power with Old Spear Tip, turning this into a 12 and this into a 4. I'm actually going to do some quick math. This is obviously 12-point play. This is what? They lose 8, we gain 8. So this is 16. This is actually better than Scorch. Kelly, which we do have more units, so we need to play her in the range row if we want to. That's 9 points, which is still not as good as those other options. Eskel, it's still early enough that could be decent value, but not as good as something like Ornate Censor. So that's really looking like the answer here. And then Pokia as well. Would like to get something in this row as quickly as possible, though. I mean, we could use Leader Ability Charge to make that happen, but I'm not really sure we want to go that route, because otherwise Shoop Knight is going to keep on taking this damage, and that's... I mean, we want to try to get as big a Resilience card going into the next round as possible. Okay, Cave Troll. So a Defender. And... Okay, so we did let... Ooh, don't play it. We did let this card go all the way up to 14, so it's either going to turn into a Scenario or Vi or Percusia. So we lucked out a little bit that it's at least playable at this point, and it could be a way to take some of the damage from the Frost off of Shoop. So that's an option. It's not an amazing option, but it does help prevent a future brick, which is what this would eventually turn into. Lambert, when they have the Defender, is not great. Uma's Curse, honestly, might be the next best choice for us, but it's, of course, obviously a huge unknown. We could play Sienna, but I have no idea what we're going to get out of her, so we might not even have anything that Sienna could set up. So I think we do go for Vi here. And let's use our stratagem to get the coins just in case, because that might be the last turn that we take, depending on what our opponent does here. Okay, it's Ragnarok, so they're going to replace the Frost with Cataclysm for a few turns, which may mean more damage on Shoop. But it gets randomly split, so we can't say definitively. Okay, so Shoop took 1 point of damage there. And for what it's worth, we could Yrden ourselves and get +5 on Shoop and +2 on Vi. So that's what? Total of +7? Plus 2-point body? Total of 9? Lever, obviously, is, I mean, for Syndicate in particular, works really well. Can get some additional coins. And put them in this row and split the damage across additional units. That is saying something. Do we prefer that? Or we could set Shoop's power to 14 once we get a card out from our deck with points. That might be the best answer, actually. Looking for a 3 here. We did not get one. Let's dump you. Doesn't really help us outside of, well, the future Roin setup, so curious to see if they keep playing here. We do have a decent advantage, but of course we have played one more card than them. If we do play another turn, then Roin's is a really big way to make Shoop a whole lot bigger. Okay, it's Renew, and I honestly don't even remember what, if anything, and the answer is nothing, we destroyed. So now, we have some interesting options. I mean, we have Devotion. Unseen Elder is amazing. Obviously, at this point, it's technically still only a 9-point advantage, so might still want to play. I think we're looking at Unseen Elder on Cave Troll, I suppose. And then at least that gives us a turn to use Roints on Shoop Knight. And might just play you here in the melee row now that once we use you, we're going to get Shoop Knight way boosted up, and so it's not as big a deal, this Cataclysm, anymore. It's not like it's about to take out Shoop. There we go, plus 12. So that is very nice, and then we technically do have extra damage, because you were a mage. I mean, it's armor, so it's not really going to do much, but why not? Because you will also get hit from the Unseen Elder, since we have Devotion, so it procs twice as often. They will pass now, so that's fine, honestly, because even though we played one more card than us to win, or we played one more card than them to win round 1, we have, Shoop's going to lose his boost, but it'll be an 8-point body now going into round 2, and we still have the ability to spawn in a Centurion Spellweaver through Chapter Wizards with that carryover, so that's really helpful. And then we have a little bit of coinage we'll have, which we can use combined with the Sea Jackal to get a little bit more points. So we are very likely going to push here, going into round 2. Okay, so as I said, we may look to push in round 2. If we are going to do that, then we need to bear in mind the provision cost of our cards. Kelly will turn to 14. That's really hard to play. That is likely to be a scenario similar with Zoltan, so we're likely looking to swap both of them out. Okay, and that gives us, at least with Freak Show, what should be a decent number for us to be on. This will turn into a 9, and Roderick will be a 7, or by the time we play him, likely an 8. Because this is probably what comes first. Depends on what everything transforms into, though, of course. And the answer is Igor, and don't quite have 5 coins, but we also don't have a bronze allied unit at the moment. And we could generate coins with Roderick. Honestly, I think we'll do this. It's not our highest provision cost card, but to get a decent value out of a 6 provision card is nice, because that means next turn we get an option to play a 10, and we get an option to play an 8, an option to play a 7 there. I mean, solid across the board. So let's do this. It does help synergize with Pirate's Cove, and I guess we'll use this now. That way, if we need the damage on our next turn, we have it ready to go. Okay, it is Kelly, and honestly, melee row Kelly is really solid. I'm curious which one it's going to destroy. It is Roderick. That is probably more valuable than the Spellweaver was. We have some very interesting options here, especially if, let's see, this would get us to what? 17 once you add in 4 more points from the Sea Jackal. That gets us to what? 21? Add in a boost on the Sea Jackal. We're at 23. Almost there. Quacks. Gets us what? King of Beggars. Doesn't really help us. Skjall, as a point slam, not bad. Talking another 6 provision cost card, so to get solid value out of 6 provisions, I think we'll take it. I think we will take that. And it means we're going to lose the Spellweaver here at the end of our turn, but I think that's, or once they play the end of their turn, I think that's fine, because we weren't likely to get much value out of this, and so if we're playing against Kelly, we want to have tall units, and we have tall units at the moment. Okay, here comes the leader ability charge, and actually, that means they're going to spawn in a volunteer, and that's going to be counter to what they want to do with Kelly. The more units they have, the more likely they are to not destroy one of our cards, or even destroy one of their own cards at the end of this turn. Yeah, that might backfire on you. I mean, sure, you're going to lose a 1-power Philippa, but you are losing a unit, and that is still saying something. And now, Reynard will boost subsequent units that we play. Yes, there aren't very many additional units that we are going to play here in this round, so that's maybe not saying all that much. Ardgeth would weaken Kelly. It'd be best if they also had units in their range row. They do not. And unfortunately, Brothans, although he's Assimilate, which is very effective in this event, he is not going to play a Disloyal unit because we don't have a Disloyal unit in your starting deck. So, I think that means it's probably Reynard. We don't have a Scapegoat in our starting deck, do we? I don't think I put one in there, but that makes me have that idea that maybe that is worth it for Brothans alone. But yeah, it'll be Reynard. It'll be Reynard, and we should put you next to Skjall so we can boost him. think we will just in case, because if he gets damaged by 1, he's going to get destroyed, and that was a dangerous place for him to be for that reason. Okay, Bone Talisman, that is solid with Kelly, because it is going to destroy one of our cards, that means. But because we went tall, we're still doing okay here. Not to mention, we might be able to cause some more chaos with Shoop Stay Off or Hjalmar. Hold on. We have a tall enough unit in our graveyard that we could actually destroy Kelly. We have Vi. Does that have to be a Skellige unit? It does not. That's worth 7. It's not enough. Anything bigger than Vi? No. Okay, so I think it's Shoop. And honestly, you could potentially even make a case for trying for something other than Shoop Knight. Potentially destroy Kelly with Shoop Hunter. Potentially move Kelly onto our side with Shoop Mage. Lots of options. Maybe we'll keep it simple, though. We do get the resilience, and it is our highest unit. So it does mean that even if Kelly keeps on proccing here, we're going to lose our original Shoop Knight, which no longer has resilience, as the next Kelly victim. Unless they play another unit, in which case we're not going to have any victims. And they may have succumbed to the pressure here, as that looks like a rage quit. So there's a look at the Syndicate deck for the new Patience is a Virtue seasonal event. If you liked the video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you'd like us to experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.